Hello all, welcome back. It's time to get the reading done for the month of August and see what the spirits have as we're dealing with the heat dome that has hit so many of us across the U.S. country. But I'm sure those heats are also being felt elsewhere in the world. So let's go ahead and get the ancestors in and see what they've got to say for this coming month of August. All right, so we have thrown the bones and we've gotten the Adinkra card. And we're starting out with the 12th house, which is endings, healing, closure, and spirituality. Now, why is that important? Well, we're kind of this month, we're going to be coming and heading towards the ending portion of summer for some of us, which of course summer doesn't end until September here in the Northern Hemisphere. But this is also about the energies that are coming up with that aspect of there is change. And for new things to begin, something's got to end. There have to be endings for there to be new beginnings. And there's a lot of energy that goes into our psyche about always being interested in beginnings and the newness, which in itself is not inherently bad, but there have to be endings. There has to be closure. And part of that also means that sometimes healing has to have closure involved in it. Because the space could not be used for the healing if it is being occupied by whatever is causing the wound. Now, when we also throw in the Adinkra side of it, we have the padlock of law, seal of law and order. Supreme authority and justice of the court, legality, legitimacy, and the power of the court. So what this says to me is that this next month of August, we need to be very much aware of where the law can help us have endings, can help us heal, can help us have closures, and how is the law also helpful in ensuring that our spirituality is functioning. Now, I say that in the standpoint of endings also require, there's a spirit to an ending. There's a spirit of that letting go of that energetic exchange and attachment, and in some cases allowing it to become thinner. If the cord was the size, if generally the cord in the active moment was the size of, say, a large fire hose, like they use on the fire trucks, and over time it became your ordinary garden hose, which do you think is going to be easier to cut? And especially when there's water flowing through it, or in this case, emotional energy flowing through it. The water hose, your ordinary garden hose, is going to be much easier to cut than a fully pressurized fire hose. Even just a plastic tubing that might be used like an aquarium tank is going to be easier to cut with that emotional energy flowing through it than the fire hose. And the spiritual energy that we're dealing with here is also going to be very much tied into making sure our legal P's and Q's are addressed. So definitely put energy into making sure all your legal foundations are sound so that they can provide the endings that they need and also the foundations for the new beginnings. So when we look at the bones as they fell, we actually have one of our main bones here that's actually off the reading surface. Well, partially off this reading surface. This one here, this is work. This one is family. This one is home. And this time, work is not the primary or biggest focus here. It is not the thing that is going to be needing the greatest amount of attention. But there's stuff that it's going to be taking off, and there's stuff that's ending there. And that's what we're seeing with the energy coming off the. There's an ending here. There's an ending with some elements of our work that we need to make sure we are letting go of, and we're making sure that the energy and all the P's and Q's, all that legality that is connected to them is done. Now, these over here, the home with social family bond, it's here, it's floating. There's going to be a lot of whatever's going on with these legality issues that involve our family. And again, that does not just include the family of our blood origin, it can include the family of our spiritual origins, as well as our social and community groups too. So there's stuff that's going to go on there that involve both endings, but also the sense of how they're operating. Now, it is the home one that's here that's important. And I know I'm right now dealing with a situation in my family that involves issues of home and whether or not something can be kept. And how are we effectively letting go of it in a way that is taking care of everyone, but knows that it's going to change things. And this is definitely going to bring up a lot of internal issues, because as we see, we've got the shell here turned inward. So it's going to be a lot of internal issues, a lot of thinking by the number of spinal bones here. Also the aspect of the balance bones from the tail, how it shifts. And that means our tail is going to be shifting. So there's going to be a bunch of energy coming through, a bunch of emotional energy coming through. But there's also inspiration. There's the two rib bones here, and you can see there how they're crossed. They sort of form this, almost like this, like the classic drawing technique of the bird in flight. And so I think there's an aspect, again, where spirit is saying that there is energy that they are hoping and they're bringing forward that you want to be open and connected to. Now, depending on how you do this and how you work with this inspiration, it will either bring you to being a more solidified home, or it's going to bring you into the strife, which we have the broken rib bone here. And the more you focus on the idea of balance, as opposed to maybe the intellect. So I'm going to really say, focus on what's going on intellectually here, as opposed to what do you think is going to be, quote unquote, fair. I think you go a lot further. We also have here, as you can see towards the edges, we've got a lot more of these bones here, both the broken rib bone and it's flipped. So I'm really feeling like it's not about offering support, it's maybe about withdrawing support, so that there's the energy back inside of itself. Because that also comes with the standpoint of closures. And closure also means withdrawing. We have the end of the tailbone here, and also one of their ending tailbones here. All of that's coming up. And then we got this copper here. So spirits here, spirits are connected with what we're going to have to do internally. But again, more importantly, is that we're looking at endings. How can we end in the best possible way? With the most sound and the most, not so much balance, but the most ways that can set us up for the future. Because that's it. That's the thing, is for whatever is ending, there is going to be a beginning of something else. And how have we set ourselves up to be as functional for that? And how are we operating with the greatest sense of putting the spirit into that new thing that's coming, but that spirit has got to move away from what's ending. And we need to accept endings. And one of those ways that we can have the endings happen is making sure we are legally sound. So, with that, we thank the ancestors, the rishas, the loas, the gods, and whatever spirits that you believe in for this information. And be well. Ashe.